Good morning, welcome back to another video on the channel. Carlos Alcaraz is out of the 2024 US Open after a straight sets defeat to Botic van de Zandschulp in what was a huge upset and the biggest upset so far of the tournament. If anyone watched my preview video for the US Open, I did say that I would not be surprised if Alcaraz went out of this tournament early, and that I believe for now that hard court is Alcaraz's weakest surface. So I'm just going to go back and sort of chat about this here and what I think is coming up for him in 2024 and beyond. So starting off with this video, I do not in any way want this video to look like I'm criticising Carlos Alcaraz. He is a player that is 21 years old, already a multiple Masters champion, won 4 majors, and in my opinion is the best 21-year-old the sport has ever seen. At the moment, I feel like Alcaraz is probably one of the most important athletes in the world in terms of his age, his ability, how he entertains the crowd and the sporting world. He's certainly one of the most popular athletes in the world as well, and the real talk of the town. And although that's fantastic news for tennis and Alcaraz, in some ways, it also does bring a hell of amount of pressure and mental fatigue. And I feel like that's partly the reason why we haven't seen the best of performances from Alcaraz in Cincinnati and US Open after what has been a very tough physical demanding few months for him on and off the court, with his shot to stardom so quick. And I would go as far as saying that I feel like this result against Van de Zandschulp is mostly down to the year that Alcaraz has had already in terms of winning the French Open in what was a very physical, demanding tournament, beating Sinner and Zverev in 5 in particular in the semi-finals and finals, then going to Wimbledon to get to the final of that tournament as well and beat Novak Djokovic in the final, then transforming back to clay to get to the final of the Olympics, where he was under huge amounts of pressure to win gold for Spain, having won Roland Garros title number 2. And then he's transformed to hard courts on Cincinnati and US Open. And for a player of such a young age, it's incredibly difficult to do that physically and mentally. And I feel like we're starting to see the impacts of what it's had on Alcaraz physically and mentally. And that has been the reason for his poor performances. Going forward, I feel like Alcaraz is a player that is so young. He loves playing the sport. He loves entertaining the crowds. He wants to win every title. He wants to become world number 1. But I feel like this he has to learn lessons from. And that's something that he spoke about in his post-match interview, which I was pleased to hear about, that he needs to learn some lessons in terms of he didn't have enough rest after the Olympics. Could he have skipped Cincinnati? Going forward from this tournament, he's now scheduled to play Davis Cup, Laver Cup, Shanghai Masters, Paris Masters, ATP finals. In my opinion, he's going to have to take some time out, whether he doesn't play Davis Cup for Spain, whether he withdraws from Laver Cup. He needs weeks off, and to play those tournaments, in my opinion, wouldn't be the right move. We've seen him play poorly last night, although Van de Zandschulp was fantastic. Alcaraz needs a break physically and mentally, and needs a reset physically and mentally as well to be able to have successful results at Shanghai, in Paris, at ATP finals. I don't think he should play Davis Cup or Laver Cup. I think he should have a month off from the sport. But knowing Alcaraz, he'd probably be back on court immediately and wanting to play both of those events. I also spoke about my US Open preview that I feel like hard court is Alcaraz's weakest surface, and that would probably be a surprise to many given that the power game that he has. But the reason I said that, I feel like serve and return is so important at the US Open and Cincinnati, given how fast the hard courts are. And I don't feel like second serve for Alcaraz or his return game is yet elite. You know, when you look at Djokovic, the way he usually serves, he hasn't served well this tournament, but his return game in particular is so dominant and he gets on top of so many rallies using that unbelievable return. I don't feel like Alcaraz has got that just yet. I also feel like he gets rushed for pace more on a hard court than he does on clay and grass, which doesn't give him the time to wind up and really generate the pace that we can see him do that on a great grass and clay court. His defensive forehand, in my opinion, is not elite yet. I don't think he defends particularly well out of that corner at all. And that's something that has been targeted in the past couple of years. And we've seen Alcaraz really struggle with defending out of that forehand corner. And that's such an important aspect of the game on a hard court. And I also feel like when Alcaraz is using his variety, his slices, the variety in his backhand, being creative in and around the net, using his physicality and his speed, which you have to do on a clay and hard court, on clay and a grass court. Sorry, you have to be different. You have to use variety. You have to slice the ball a lot and take pace off. I feel like Alcaraz is at his best when he's doing that. But 90% of the ATP Tour are at home on a hard court, and we saw last night from Van de Zandschulp, when you're playing sort of 1 and 2 strike tennis and lots of short points, these players have immense power, and when the ball's, landing at the consistent good height for these players to be able to tee off and serve and return well, then it does bring them on a more level playing field against players like Alcaraz. And if you look at Alcaraz's year, I feel like, he's an incredible talent. I'm not in any way trying to downplay his achievements. To win Roland Garros and Wimbledon back to back and then get the final of the Olympics were incredible achievements, and you can never take them away from him. But I do feel like he got away with not playing his best tennis in some sets and giving sets away, but wasn't punished because these players just aren't accustomed or aren't quite good enough on clay or grass to take advantage of Alcaraz's poor moments. Even looking back to the French Open to start off with, in that semi-final against Sinner, I do feel like Sinner was on top of that match before he started to cramp and struggle with his hip, and that's when we saw Alcaraz really take over and win in 5. Sasha Zverev was 2-1 up in the final, in my opinion, playing far better tennis than Alcaraz on that day. But as we've come to see with Zverev, when the going gets really tough, the matches get physically demanding, he gets within an opportunity of winning, then he doesn't quite have what it takes mentally to go on and win a match against the elite players. And we saw Alcaraz fight back and win that 4th and 5th sets. At Wimbledon, he had lapses in concentration and played poor sets against Tiafoe, Humbert, Tommy Paul. And as I've said, these players just aren't quite good enough on grass to be at the court with Alcaraz, who has that much variety and produced his best in the biggest moments to turn those matches around. But it did feel like, coming at the hard courts, that Alcaraz wouldn't be able to play at the level that he did at times and get away with it. And that's what we saw last night. These players in the ATP Tour are at home on hard courts, and when he's not playing his best, he gets punished. And that's what happened last night and what happened in Cincinnati against Monfils, that you can't have lapses in concentration on hard courts, doesn't matter who you are. We've seen lots of upsets in the past at US Open, Australian Open, and that's due to the depth and the quality on the ATP Tour on hard courts. So going on for this year, as I mentioned, I would like to see Alcaraz take time out the sport now. We know that he is top 3 player in the world. We know that he's going to win many Masters and majors, but I feel like he needs to learn lessons from his career. He's still very young. He probably feels this year that he hasn't had enough time off, especially after the Olympics, but now is an opportunity for him. I would be surprised if he pulled out of Davis Cup or Laver Cup, just given the type of character that Alcaraz is. He's very competitive. And as I said, he wants to challenge for every title and record and ranking. So it's not the type of thing you would expect to see Alcaraz do in terms of pulling out of events due to fatigue. But I do feel like it could be beneficial for him looking at Shanghai Masters, Paris Masters, and ATP finals. So yeah, it was the first huge shock of the US Open for many. I did not expect Alcaraz to lose against Van de Zandschulp, but it was the same type of thing that I wasn't massively surprised to see him exit early, just for the level that I've seen him so far this year. I feel like he hasn't been punished at times, and I always felt like hard court was his weakest surface, and he came up against somebody in a really good going day that he wouldn't be able to produce tennis that wasn't his best and get through it. And that's what happened last night. So it opens up a huge opportunity now for Jannik Sinner to reach a final, given that was the projected semi. And, Djokovic isn't playing anywhere near his best yet, but has got through in straight sets. Alexander Zverev's through, Daniel Medvedev. We've got the Americans looking strong. Jack Draper's playing very good tennis. So Alcaraz going out will be a wake-up call for the top players to know that, the low-ranked players are also playing well and capable of upsets. And we should see a fantastic ending to the US Open now. So if you want to leave your comments of what you think about Alcaraz's year so far and going on into 2025 and beyond, then I do always enjoy reading those. If you would subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. 500 subscribers is the next target. Hope to reach that by the end of the year. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.